I want to quit dropshipping. I'm sick of it. The ad account bans, the payment processor holds, the unhappy customers. Problem after problem after problem. I've had enough. I'm ready to quit. This was something that was told to me in a recent call on my Discord. I know, kind of clickbait. I just want to get your attention because the reality is you may feel this way. And so do a lot of other people, especially in the early days of any single business model that you want to learn. So I want to talk about whether or not you should actually go through with that decision of quitting and moving on to something else, or deciding to give it a little bit more time and possibly reframing the way that you're currently approaching it mindset-wise and just through tactical strategies. Because I can understand this sentiment. I really do. I was someone who, when I first started dropshipping at 16, I was well aware of my lack of intelligence and lack of business acumen and experience. So I gave myself some leeway of realizing that it's going to take some time. It's not going to be an overnight success by any means. But after going and being in the trenches for a few months, I would say about 9 months in, nothing really changed in my life. No, it wasn't one of those scenarios where I made a lot of money and it didn't change my life. It was, I had $3,000 in my bank account and now I have nilch. Nada. I'm a brokey. And for most people, if you dedicate 9 months of your life to something and you're obsessed about it, you'll see some sort of progress. If you go to the gym for 9 months and you're taking your creatine, you're working out, you're doing your push-pull legs, which is the ultimate split. There's nothing better than that. You're going to notice your muscles, get a little bigger, get a little saucier. You're going to notice you put on some more pounds. You start lifting a bit more. Maybe initially you're bench pressing 45 pounds, just the bar, and now you're at 135. You're going to see a tangible result. Now, the problem is with dropshipping and most business models is that you don't really see tangible results in the form of outputs a lot of times within the first few months. Now, what does that mean? I would equate dropshipping most similarly to cutting down a tree. And the famous analogy is always, it's not the last cut or the last swing that knocked down the tree. It was the thousands of swings beforehand. And in a lot of cases, that is what entrepreneurship is. Consistently every day taking the right actions over and over and over and trusting the process and trusting that eventually through doing the right actions and through taking the right steps, you will get your desired outcome, which in this case would be knocking down that tree. But what most people do is that they will take the right actions, but they will quit halfway in. They will quit before the tangible output happens, and they don't realize that the floodgates would open if they just stayed a little bit longer. So how do we get you to realize that you are on the right path and even reframe the way that you think about problems? Because problems shouldn't be a bad thing. You shouldn't want to run away from it. Because yes, with any business model, there are inherently challenges that you are going to have to overcome, different obstacles, different bars that you have to jump over to eventually get your desired result. And I think that should be the case. I don't think anything in life is worth achieving or worth pursuing if there isn't some obstacles, if there isn't some resistance that's pushing you to become a greater person. And I feel the best approach you can have with any business model, especially dropshipping, is instead of trying to avoid problems or trying to super hyper focus on one product and make that product work and avoid pain, avoid any uncomfortability. What I see in the most successful people, my most successful students, is that they fail as many times as possible, as fast as possible. They speed run through all the problems that could ever happen to them. And by solving them as soon as possible, they become invincible. Because they've gone through all the shit. They've gone through all the hard times, and that's built up their tolerance for handling problems. Because a lot of times just being an entrepreneur in any business model is just being a firefighter. It's handling fires. And the more problems you solve, the bigger the problems you solve eventually, the bigger the outcomes. And the more and more problems you solve, the faster you will get to whatever your target desire is. And I find it interesting when I was talking to one of my best ever students, Matt. And Matt joined my program, I believe, at the start of the year. He's now doing $20,000 a day within 6 months. This guy hasn't even been dropshipping for a year, and he's doing $20,000 a day. Now, you may be asking, how the hell did he get there? Was he lucky? Was he a super genius? Did he already have previous business experience? And the answer to all that is no. No to all of it. But the thing that really put Matt ahead of everyone else was his ability to fail so many times. I mean, this guy truly was amazing at failure. I think by the time he got to around 3 months in, and in a lot of cases, my students will find a winning product before then, and they'll already be at $1,000 a day. And he had seen that. He's like, Ethan, what's going on, man? I feel like I'm taking all the right actions. I've tried so many different products. Why hasn't it happened for me yet? And the reality is, a lot of the times, you just have to put in your dues. And eventually, because your journey was harder and you had to go through more obstacles, the outcomes of what you're going to get once you make it are going to be far much greater than the people that had less to overcome. Because once they have real problems, they don't know how to actually deal with it. And I think you see that a lot of times with people that become famous really quickly. They get their first song that's top of the charts and they get so much fame and it all happens so quickly that they don't know how to handle it. They weren't prepared. They didn't go through all the struggles. I think you could equate that somewhat to Elvis, because Elvis was like one of the first ever people that became truly famous, and he had to go, and because of that experience, he made all of these mistakes so that the next person that became as famous knew the roadmap, knew what was going to potentially happen. But obviously Elvis didn't, and you know how it ended, dying on the toilet. Not a bad way to go. Hell yeah, brother. But Matt went through every single challenge. He basically speed ran through all the problems that could have happened with his dropshipping store. I'm talking, he had his ad account banned multiple times. He had payment processor issues. He had 20 plus products he tested without seeing any success. I mean, he made some sales, but nothing scaled. He went through all of the shit, and he had put in his sweat equity and did basically 2 years worth of work within 3 months. He had figured out, how can I do as much as I possibly can within these 3 months so that I can eventually become this overnight success that 6 months in now is doing 20 grand a day. And it's basically asking yourself, yeah, how can I do what most people would take 3 years to do in 3 months? How do I speed run this process? Because if you truly want to get results as soon as possible, that's what it's going to take. You're going to have to go through problems that, usually 9 months in, someone deals with their first ad account ban or payment processor hold. But if I can get that problem and immediately know the solution and have that experience and lock that in my brain for the future within my first month, then I am already so much further ahead than everyone else that has yet to have that problem. So I would say the first mindset shift you need to have is, when you do have problems, which are inevitably going to happen, don't be pissed. Don't say, why me? Boo-hoo. God, the world just hates me. You should openly embrace the challenges, because the challenges are going to make you stronger. The challenges are going to make you push harder. And when you overcome them, you realize that you can really handle anything. And it also, in a way, shows you that you're on the right path, because no one who's ever done 5, 10, 20 grand a day with this industry has not had to deal with those problems. And if you haven't had those problems yet, you should almost be trying to get them to happen by pushing as hard as you can. Like, get the Band-Aid ripped off, essentially. But for a lot of you guys, you had the Band-Aid still on. You're holding on to it. You don't want to deal with the pain when the pain is what's going to actually help you get to success as soon as possible. Now, let's talk about other reasons why you may want to quit outside of just problems. And I think in most cases, people do feel a sense of entitlement that they do deserve, because they put in a certain amount of work, some tangible results. And the only tangible results, let's face it, that we care about is money. We want to see sales. We want to be making back a return on all the time, investment, and money we put into it, and rightfully so. As we mentioned earlier, if you go to the gym for 9 months, you're going to see some visible results. You're going to see progress. But if your only way of measuring progress is through sales and through money made, then yes, you are most likely going to quit early. And you're going to get demotivated. Because the reality is, you're probably not going to make money unless you are working with an elite mentor, aka myself, for a year to 2 years, especially if you're doing it alone. It's most likely going to take a year to 2 years. Obviously, you can speed things up by learning from other people that are a step ahead of you, by skipping the learning curve. It could be me. It could be someone else. It could be going through a course. I mean, I have an 8-hour free course you guys can check out. That will give you all the strategies. But you also have to implement it and go through the trial and error. You have to struggle. You actually have to do the thing. And then once you do the thing, you'll figure out, okay, this definitively does not work for me. And that's still progress. Figuring out what doesn't work. Trying new things and seeing, okay, maybe this hook will finally be the one that helps me out, or this concept, or trying this with my product page. And if it doesn't work, okay, cool. That's still learning. That's still getting you closer. But the problem is, we're so afraid of failure. We're so focused on the money instead of the process, that even though you have made incredible progress within the 3, 6 months, year that you've been doing this, you don't really give yourself any credit or kudos. Because I can guarantee, if you look at your first product test, your first website build compared to where it's at now, you probably made some incredible strides, because you've went through the feedback loop of finding out what works and what doesn't work. Now, if your first test and your 6th test looks exactly the same and you haven't really learned much, that is a problem. You're going to need to actually make changes, but if you don't know what changes to make, that's probably where you're going to need some outside help from someone who's actually done it before and can give you some feedback on, oh, this is what you're doing wrong. And I know that's what it took for me. So I tested 20 plus products. I had done it pretty much in the same way with each product. I tried a few new things here and there, but I just couldn't crack the code. And a lot of times that just means, okay, you need to learn the right code, you need to learn the right strategy, and learn how to actually execute from someone who's done it. And I know whenever I learn a new skill nowadays, trying to get into real estate, I now have a coach who's going to tell me, oh, yeah, here's all the mistakes I made when I bought my first few deals, and here's the things that people don't talk about that you need to know, because I know for a fact I would have just made the exact same mistakes as him if I didn't actually learn from him. So a lot of times, if you do value your time and not making as many mistakes when you're doing this, because you can limit them, then learn from someone who already has. But getting back to the actual point, which I know I like to divulge into many different points. That's the autism for you. But you need to change your definition of progress. If you don't change it, you are going to quit before the floodgates open, before you actually get the exciting outcome. Because if your definition of progress was developing your skills and being obsessed about the process to develop your skills and get new tests launched, and that you are completely detached from the outcome of it, then you will be so much further ahead than someone who is just hyper focused on just making money, doing these, I know I said cock there, but doing the hacks, the quick strategies, the magic pills, because we all want some golden magic pill strategy to just cut the learning curve and get tons of money instantly, and they just don't exist. I know, I've looked for them. Believe me, I have tried every single Facebook ad strategy, testing strategy, product research strategy, everything under the sun I've tried. There is nothing that replaces actually doing the thing over and over and over again, and then just developing your skills and your execution. The only reason why you don't have the outcomes you want is just because you haven't figured out the execution. That is it. So if you change your measure of progress from, okay, sales, let's take that away, to am I developing my skills every single day? You'll most likely be incredibly enthusiastic and excited just by the fact of getting a new test up that has some sort of new element or some sort of new improvement on your product page or ad creatives. And just by doing that and iterating and getting feedback over and over and over again, you'll eventually, just as a byproduct of doing the right actions, of trusting the process, of only worrying about the process, you will get exciting results. But you can't focus on the results. You can't focus on the goal. You have to focus on the process that it takes to get there. Because once you have a dialed in process, that's when the outputs will happen. But so often people that really could make this work just give up because they're just so too hyper focused on the sales. And I get it, because constantly when you're on YouTube, constantly when you're on social media, the only thing people are showing is the results, how much money they're making, flexing the lifestyles. And that's most likely what got you into this in the first place. And that's totally fine. But I can guarantee all those people who have made it ethically and have done it the right way learned this valuable lesson of, I need to have speed and go through as many problems as possible, as many challenges as possible, and solve them as quickly as possible so I can get results as soon as possible. And I need to focus on developing my skills, getting better with my websites, getting better at ads, getting better at researching products, and then figure out what works and what doesn't work, because it's still going to be closer to eventually figuring out what does. So if you've tested 20 products and, oh my God, it hasn't worked, all right, take a note, take a rain check. Why hasn't it worked? What were the trends? What were the similarities? What can we learn and what can we do differently? So that, again, we'll try a new hypothesis out and eventually we'll figure out what does work. You can't figure out what does work until you figure out what doesn't work. And a lot of times you're going to have to figure out what doesn't work a hell of a lot more times than you'll figure out what does. You may fail 20 times, 30 times, 40 times, but you just need to be right once, figure out the similarities of what you did differently. A little bit of a contradicting sentence there, but you just need to figure out, what did you do differently this time? What were the traits of this product that were different than the other products you tested? And then double down on that. Because once you figure out what works once, you just need to double down, keep it simple, and that will help you scale. I hope you guys do get kind of the takeaways of what I'm trying to say here. Because the reality is, I could have given up. I've had so many issues throughout this journey. Even when you get your first winning product, there will still be problems. The product will die eventually. You'll get unhappy customers. You'll be working your ass off doing so many different roles that you eventually get burnout. You're going to just deal with higher level issues. So initially, you'll have these first surface level issues and you'll be able to handle those, and that'll build up your tolerance. That'll build up your skin. You'll get thicker skin. And then eventually, you're just going to get higher level issues. Even when you're doing $1 million a month, you're going to get some high level issues. You're going to have payment processor holds. You're going to have shipping and logistics issues. You're going to have so many higher level issues. But the more problems you solve, the more you can scale and the more money you're going to make. But the problems never stop. You have to get good at being calm, thinking logically and rationally, and being able to embrace these challenges with a smile on your face, because once you solve these, you're going to be a better entrepreneur, you're going to be a better person, and you're going to be further ahead in your journey. And I'd say the final thing I really would like to mention, if you are a little bit demotivated, and again, you're thinking about quitting, is realize that there are no business models that are easy. Quitting this and thinking that there's something else that's easier is simply not the case. You will always have to put in your dues. You will always have to learn the skills, the strategies, the execution. And a lot of times it just doesn't make sense to start over from scratch when you've already made so much progress here. You're so close and you just don't know it yet. It may not feel like you're close. It may feel like you're bashing your head against a wall, but that's what it takes. Doing the thing over and over and over again, and just making slight tweaks, minuscule tweaks that may not seem like a big difference, but eventually you'll figure out what does work. But you got to realize there really is no easy business models. Copywriting, Amazon FBA, Forex, crypto, all of it have their inherent challenges where you have to be incredibly obsessed. You have to know everything inside out. You have to go through the trial and error. You have to go through the losing money. You have to go through the headaches, go through the hardships, and then eventually you will be qualified and eventually you'll be worthy of being successful. But you have to go through this hero's journey of struggle, of pain, no matter what it is, and still be focused and still have the discipline to do the thing every single day and not get demotivated to eventually get to the point where you have exciting results. Because when you do all that, like with my student Matt, and you push through the pain and you solve the problems and you realize that you are on the right track and it's just one product away. We're just one split test away. We're just one offer away. We're just one ad creative away from making $0 a day to now making $1,000 a day. That should be what keeps you disciplined. Because one day Matt was making nothing. He was actually losing thousands of dollars every single month. And then this month, I get a screenshot from him that he's making $20,000 a day in less than 6 months. A crazy transformation. And it's because he realized he was on the right path. He just needed to speed run the process, focus on the process, getting better with his own process and his own blueprint to eventually make the money that he was capable of making in the first place, that he didn't realize he was capable of until the floodgates broke. But I can guarantee if he didn't go through all those problems, the ad account bans, the products failing, he probably would only be stuck at $1,000 to $2,000. He wouldn't be able to scale because he couldn't solve the challenges, to solve the problems that occur when you try to scale from $1 to 10 grand a day, which yes, even at that level, even when it's just scaling, will have its own problems. So focus on trying to be the toughest entrepreneur you can be, the one that can solve any problem that is thrown at them with a smile on their face. The entrepreneur who's hyper focused on just the process, nailing those things down. And if you don't have the process right now, then learn from someone who does. It's as simple as that. And be fully obsessed with it. Dedicate your life to it. Say that you will not quit until you figure it out. Because the reality is you don't have an intelligence issue. You don't have a time issue. All of that is just excuses. The only reason why you haven't made it yet is you just haven't developed the execution yet and you're not focusing on the right things. That is it. So I hope if you are someone that's a little bit demotivated and you maybe are thinking of quitting, you do stick to it. You focus on the right things. You maybe even decide that, okay, what I'm doing right now is clearly not working, so let me try something new. Maybe that's testing products in a different way or learning from a different person. Or instead of doing it alone, let me work with someone that can help me out. Let me partner with someone. Who knows? But just realizing that, okay, what I'm doing might not be working yet, but if I stay consistent, I tweak a few things here and there, it'll eventually happen where I get these exciting results like Ethan of making 0 to 10 grand a day. Like I wasn't rolling in it. I used to be a poor brokey just like yourself, but now I'm rolling in it. And it's just because I put in my reps, learned from the right people. I went through the challenges. I went through the pains to the point where anything that's thrown at me now, I can solve lickety-split. So finally, you just need to realize that failure is always going to happen and you can't have a negative relationship with it, as it'll be the thing that gives you the most positive feedback on what you need to improve on directly. It won't coddle you. It'll tell you exactly what it will take and what changes you need to do to finally make it. So when things get hard, which they inevitably will, don't run away like everyone else will, with your tail in between your ass. Embrace the hard. Pause. Because that's the time when you earn it and you prove to everyone and yourself that you are worthy of being someone that will be successful no matter what business model you choose. And if we're truly keeping it 100, brother, you have not given it your all. No chance in hell. So keep grinding, keep working at it, and eventually, if you focus on the right things, the exciting outcomes of being able to buy me a steak in Miami will happen. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a terrific week.